Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times, a Prancing Pony podcast production. I'm the Man of the West. Let's keep Week 84 going with another Word Nerd Wednesday, and we're going to be continuing with this new tradition of using Word Nerd Wednesdays to look at some of the new names and words that we've encountered in our Túrin Bar Tuesday readings. Today, then, we'll look at several names that came up in yesterday's reading. First was the ruler of the people of Haleth at the time, Brandir, son of Handir. And we've talked about the dir element several times, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago. It's a Sindarin element that simply means man, meaning a male, not just the race of men. Tolkien even includes Brandir's name as an example of the element in the etymologies of the 1930s, writing that the element dir survives chiefly in proper names as Diriel, older Dirhel, Haldir, Brandir. Now we see it, of course, in other names like Dirhael, wise man, it's Aragorn's maternal grandfather, and Lindir, one of the elves in Rivendell. The other element in Brandir's name is, well, Brand, a Sindarin adjective glossed in Parma El de Lambaron 17 as towering, tall, and massive. We see it in Tol Brandir, the island in Nen Hithoil, and we looked at this back in Week 75's Middle-earth Map Monday. Now, interestingly, one of its derivations is the root Barat, from which we get Baradur, Dark Tower. Now, his father's name, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, Handir, means intelligent man. But let's move on to the place that sounds like it's named after Brandir, Ephel Brandir. And it is, in fact, named after him. He is the ruler, after all, and has built this stockade upon a high place in the forest. So now that we know what Brandir means, what does Ephel mean? Now, interestingly enough, Ephel is one of the few words actually glossed for us in The Lord of the Rings itself. Now, sure, the only term in which Ephel appears, Ephel Duoth, appears to mean something like mountains of shadow. But if you dive into Appendix E on writing and spelling and look specifically at the rules on pronunciation, you're going to find something interesting. Now, there, in the entry for how to pronounce PH, the PH letter combination in Sindarin, it's pronounced like the letter F, we read some examples of where it's used. One of those examples is, quote, in the middle of a few words where it represents a long double F from double P, as in Ephel, outer fence. So, Ephel's gloss for us literally right there, and it means outer fence. Thus, Ephel Brandir is the outer fence or surrounding ring of Brandir, the protective fort built to safeguard the dwindling people of Haleth. And by the way, that's just one of several examples of surprising glosses given to us in Appendix E. James Tauber and I discovered this when we did our episode on that part of the appendices, which will come out on the PPP feed on June 29th, not this coming Sunday, but the one after that. Now, Brandir led his people from within Ephel Brandir atop Amon Obel, and that's our next place to look at. Amon, we know by now, right? That's the singular for mountain, hill with steep sides. We see it in names like Amon Hen, Amon Sul, known as Weathertop, or in Week 79's Word Nerd Wednesday, Amon Ruth, Bald Hill. We also see it in its plural form in places like the Emin Muil, Drear Hills, or Emin Beraid, the Tower Hills. Now, who is it that Brandir leads from within the Ephel Brandir atop Amon Obel? The people of Haleth. Haleth was the woman who was the valiant leader of the Haladin. Her name is not glossed for us, but eldamo.org suggests that her name is derived from the prefix Hal, meaning chief or head, just like many of the other early leaders of the Haladin. Now, interestingly, Haleth, as the leader of the Haladin, was described as male in the Lord of the Rings drafts in the 1940s and in the Grey Annals from the early 50s. It was only in the later Silmarillion revisions of the 50s and 60s that Tolkien changed that and described Haleth as female. And I'm glad he did. She's one of my favorite women in the Legendarium. Now, finally, we get another of the names that Túrin has given himself, Turambar, which in the High Elven speech signified Master of Doom. Well, thanks again for making my job here a bit redundant, Professor. That's okay, though. There's still some word nerdery to be done. The first element in this is Tur, which means master. And yes, it's the same element as in his given name, Túrin. In Parma El de Lambaron 17, Tolkien writes that the second element, Ambar, was derived from the primitive form Mbarta, with the middle vowel A originally associated with the verbal element Tur. So, Tura Mbar. That primitive form is the common ground for other words connected with fate. Quenya Umbar, fate, doom, or curse, and Sindarin Amarth, fate or doom. Now, interestingly, just as Túrin's name was always Túrin, dating back to the very earliest Lost Tales, where the name was gnomish in origin rather than Sindarin, this nickname also dates back to the earliest Lost Tales. The meaning, however, shifted ever so slightly, from conqueror of fate in Lost Tales to master of fate in the etymologies to master of doom here in the Silmarillion. Folks, that is it for today's Word Nerd Wednesday. Come back next week as we wander the wide, wild, wonderful world of words weekly on Wednesdays. And if there's a word you want to know more about, just let me know. Email barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, a monthly hangout with me, bonus weekly episode, and more. And then join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Third Age Thursday. Podcast listeners, please subscribe to the show in your podcast apps. For those of you on YouTube, be sure to click the like button and subscribe in order to get all of the PPP productions. And be sure you're all following @PrancingPonyPod on social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.